The National Desk, America's News Now.
I did. On the first vote? On the first vote.
And it happened. Republicans find a candidate to rally behind. What the new speaker means for the House and the United States.
We will ensure Israel has what it needs to defend itself against these terrorists. That's a guarantee.
Israel increases airstrikes in Gaza as the conditions on the ground deteriorate to catastrophic levels. And then a troubling warning just in time for Halloween. Which chocolate brands are under investigation for dangerous levels of toxic metals?
The gentleman from the great state of Louisiana and the 56th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson.
Tonight, the U.S. House of Representatives back in session with a new Speaker of the House. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. It took 3 weeks, 4 nominees, 4 House votes, but Republicans have finally agreed to a new Speaker. That is Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson. And while it only took him 1 vote on the House floor to get the gavel, as the National Desk's Atra El-Nashar reports, what's next for the Speaker will be much more difficult.
Today is the day we get this done.
After 4 nominating cycles and 22 days without a House Speaker, Republicans did get it done.
The Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson won the gavel on a party line vote without a single Republican voting against him.
Please raise your right hand.
What's next for Johnson would be difficult for any speaker, especially one who didn't expect to fill the job. Congress must fund the government by November 17th and decide how to proceed with the president's more than $100 billion request to fund Israel, Ukraine, the southern border, and Taiwan.
The challenge before us is great, but the time for action is now, and I will not let you down.
Elected to the House in 2016, Johnson has the least amount of legislative experience among the leaders with whom he'll be negotiating these issues. Beyond urgent funding needs, will Johnson be able to reach across the aisle to get things done? Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries managed to quickly form an amicable working relationship.
The Honorable Mike Johnson.
It could take longer for Johnson and Jeffries.
House Democrats will continue to push back against extremism in this chamber and throughout the country.
But Johnson may prioritize mending strains within his own party, on full display the past 22 days.
I think they're worn out, they're tired. I think the country is frustrated by it. The conference is frustrated by it.
And the House is already back to work. Lawmakers immediately moved to debate and soon vote on a resolution to say the United States stands with Israel and condemns Hamas.
And Atra, has there been any reaction at this point to Johnson's speakership from the White House or other leaders of Congress, perhaps Democrats?
Right, mostly Democrats so far. We've not heard yet at all from Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, though we're standing by for a statement if one comes out tonight. We know President Biden called now Speaker Mike Johnson just shortly after it was official to congratulate him, saying he looks forward to finding common ground. The president also released a pretty lengthy statement in which he said the American people expect Republicans to work with Democrats to get things done. A similar sentiment from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. In a tweet, he said he looks forward to meeting Johnson and says, "I'll convey that bipartisanship is the only way we can deliver results." But look, the truth here is these men will just have to get to know each other, period. Mike Johnson is not a very well-known member of Congress. He did not spend years vying and lobbying for this job like Kevin McCarthy did. So it's not clear if Mitch McConnell, his counterpart, his Republican counterpart in these negotiations, has any kind of relationship with him. They'll have to get to know each other pretty quick.
Yeah. Meantime, a new era begins. Atra El-Nashar reporting in D.C. for us. Thank you.
Thanks.
And meantime, the world is closely watching a war now in its 19th day with the potential to spread. The The situation in Gaza right now, dire, as hospitals and UN sanctuary centers run out of much needed fuel that's needed to power ventilators, incubators, surgical equipment. The enclave has been on an energy blackout since October 11th as Israel tries to keep Hamas from accessing fuel for military use. And now the UN says it is hours away from running out of the critical resource that helps them care for at least 600,000 Palestinians in their shelters. The IDF has responded, showing this photo, arguing that Hamas has thousands of liters of fuel right now that they've refused to share with the Gazan people. No confirmation at this hour that these tanks have any fuel left inside of them. Earlier this week, the WHO also said that with support from the UN, it was able to deliver about 34,000 liters of fuel to select hospitals for ambulance services. But those resources, they said, were only expected to last a little over 24 hours, so they will be depleted very soon. Meanwhile, as the world awaits a possible Israeli invasion, the Wall Street Journal reporting that the country has indicated it will postpone a full-scale ground war to allow the United States time to get air defenses in place in the Middle East. The U.S. has been warning Israel from escalating the war, but maintains they are not dictating military planning. The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah group held talks today in Beirut with senior Hamas and Palestinian Jihad leadership, as shown by this photo here that was released by Hezbollah, sharing that the three of them spoke about next steps in the conflict. The goal, said Hezbollah, was to achieve a, quote, real victory for the resistance in Gaza and Palestine. And as the Gaza death toll spirals, tensions have been rising along the Lebanon-Israel border. Fears of escalation at an all-time high, and American-led coalition forces have started live fire exercises at military bases in Iraq and Syria. It comes as the DoD reveals American forces have been attacked at least 14 times in the last 2 weeks, 11 times in Iraq, 3 times in Syria, with more than 20 soldiers suffering injuries. The Biden administration is halting a policy to require some migrant families to remain in Texas while their asylum eligibility is determined. CBS reporting that local officials in El Paso who initially agreed to the initiative now oppose it. The administration announced the program in May, and it was to take effect in mid-September, but never got off the ground. Meanwhile, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has filed a new lawsuit against the federal government for allegedly having federal agents cut barbed wire that Texas officials had placed upon the border. Governor Greg Abbott had ordered the wire to be placed right near the Rio Grande to deter illegal migration. The DOJ has already sued Texas to remove the artificial border completely. And Donald Trump, he was back in a New York courtroom today, admonished again by Judge Arthur Engoron, and fined another $10,000 for comments Trump made outside of the courtroom.
Judge is a very partisan judge, with a person who's very partisan sitting alongside of him, perhaps even much more partisan than he is.
Donald Trump was asked to testify under oath who he was talking about, and he said it was Michael Cohen. The judge said Trump wasn't credible and that it must have been about the law clerk who Donald Trump is not allowed to talk about because of that gag order in place. The judge said, don't do it again or it will be worse. The judge had threatened Trump with jail time before fining him $5,000 just last week. And John Drake Jr., the estranged son of Nashville Police Chief John Drake, was found dead by what appears to be a self-inflicted gunshot. Drake Jr. was wanted in connection to a shooting of 2 Laverne, Tennessee police officers over the weekend. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation reporting that authorities responded to leads on the whereabouts of Drake Jr. when they heard a muffled gunshot from inside a nearby building where they found Drake's body. An investigation to confirm these details is ongoing. All charges against a former cop who shot and killed a man through a car window have been reinstated after a judge's ruling today. Former officer Mark Dial was charged with murder, manslaughter, official oppression, and 4 other counts in the death of Eddie Irizarry in August. We're going to continue to track this developing story and bring you the latest. The case was dismissed due to lack of evidence, but prosecutors appealed that decision. Dial's lawyer said he might try to get the trial moved out of Philadelphia. Meantime, Sergio Brown, the ex-NFL player accused of murdering his mother, denied bail today in a brief Cook County court appearance. Brown, who professionally played with the Patriots, Jaguars, Colts, and Bills, was charged by police in Maywood, Illinois, where his mother was found dead in a creek with signs of assault back in September. Brown, initially thought missing, turned up in Mexico. Police soon looking at him as a suspect in her mysterious death. And upon re-entering the United States, he was apprehended. Right now, we are tracking a concerning new salmonella outbreak linked to bagged and pre-cut onions. This is all specific to the Gill's Onions brand. So far, at least 73 people in 22 states have gotten sick. 15 of them were hospitalized. The company has recalled a number of diced onion products with a use-by date of August 2023. Recalled items should be thrown away or returned immediately. A plan to build a memorial at the site of the Pulse nightclub mass shooting is moving forward. The city of Orlando has purchased the property where 49 people were killed 7 years ago. The nonprofit One Pulse Foundation had long sought to build a memorial but had fundraising challenges. They say they look forward to being involved with the city's efforts. Elder fraud has seen a stark rise in the past few years, and the outcome could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. The National Desk's Maritza Mendoza joins us with one family's story.
Made us feel that, they were doing the right thing and they were going to take care of us.
Dennis and his wife, Joyce Shockey, were scammed out of nearly $180,000, and it all started with a pop-up on his computer.
I got a screen that said your computer is blocked.
But it wasn't blocked. It was a scammer preying on Shockey. The scammer got him to call a number and tricked him into moving money into their accounts.
Scammers aim to gain the victim's trust. FBI officials say victims over the age of 60 are typically pressured into accessing such things as retirement accounts or equity in their home and investing as much money with the scammers.
Across the nation, the crime is increasing exponentially.
We discovered from Supervisor Special Agent Lee McCloy from FBI San Antonio, trust-based investment scams represented the biggest portion of losses in 2022.
There could be 10, 50 calls a week reporting the same thing, that I was told to transfer money, and I didn't entirely understand what was going on. How do I get my money back?
We also discovered in the FBI's 2022 elder fraud report, there were more than 88,000 victims over the age of 60. There was an 84% increase in losses from 2021, and more than 5,000 victims lost more than $100,000. Special Agent McCloy says many times victims don't report these crimes because
a lot of times, either through embarrassment or confusion, the victims don't file a complaint or don't report it.
The very reason the Shockeys are now sharing their story over a year later. They're hoping to save other people from losing their life savings.
Now we are very careful with who we put our trust in.
Well, coming up, more Americans are now dealing with food insecurity. What a new report reveals about this concerning trend. Then the government has been warning Americans about a rise in hate crimes against Muslims and Jews, how some Jewish communities in particular are preparing, plus how advocates and lawmakers in one state are trying to improve outcomes for people coming out of jail. Stay with us. Well, mortgage rates continue to climb according to new data from the Mortgage Bankers Association. The average rate for the most popular home loan increased to 7.9% last week, the highest we've seen since the year 2000. Burgers and steaks, they are a lot more expensive lately, with retail beef prices at record highs in the U.S. USDA data showing prices are at around $8 per pound. It's mainly because of a smaller cattle supply from droughts and higher labor and transportation costs. A recent USDA report expected beef production to go down about 180 million pounds from August until the end of the year. Food insecurity is growing more severe in this country. This, according to a report by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that showed millions more households had difficulty securing more food, including 1 million more with children. Taking a closer look at those numbers, you're going to find a very stark difference year over year between 2021 and 2022. 12.8% of households, about 17 million, struggled to get enough food in 2022. That's up from 10.2% in 2021, which is about 13.5 million households. In 2020, the report didn't give a reason for that jump, by the way, but we do know that before the pandemic, food insecurity as a problem was improving, falling steadily in the decade before 2021. In the weeks since the Israeli-Hamas war started, there has been an increase, a rise in hate crimes across the United States. The FBI has already sounded the alarm bells for both Muslims and Jews. In response, some Jewish communities are taking matters into their own hands with firearm trainings and with some even buying their own weapons. National correspondent Christine Frizzell has the latest.
As the Israel-Hamas war plays out thousands of miles away, a growing threat here at home. The Anti-Defamation League recording at least 312 incidents of vandalism, harassment, and assault directed at Jews between October 7th and 23rd, a 400% increase from the same period last year.
And so this doubling down on anti-Semitism after one of the worst acts of anti-Semitism in modern history is making the community feel shook and concerned.
In San Diego, a Jewish cultural center closed indefinitely after being vandalized.
It seems that a lot of feelings of anti-Semitic hatred have been dormant, mostly, until now.
From the river to the sea. In Skokie, Illinois, Sunday, a pro-Palestinian counter-protest sprung up near a pro-Israel rally, and a gun was fired in the air. In response, more and more Jewish Americans are arming themselves.
Definitely seen a rise in American Jewish people purchasing firearms and wanting to get training.
Hollywood Carry gun store owner David Kowalski says the majority are people who just a few weeks ago would have never considered coming in.
Probably about 60-70% are people that have expressed, I never thought we'd be here. I never thought I would own a gun. I just thought, leave it to somebody else.
The threats are not just targeting Jewish Americans. The FBI reported a major spike in the number of anti-Arab and anti-Muslim incidents as well. That includes the brutal murder of a 6-year-old boy near Chicago, allegedly stabbed by his landlord, who prosecutors say targeted the boy for being Muslim. A rise in hate crimes on American soil, bringing the war too close to home. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
Christine, thank you. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried, he is planning to testify at his criminal fraud trial in New York. His lawyers say that the testimony will likely begin tomorrow after prosecutors call their last witness. Bankman-Fried has pleaded not guilty to charges of fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. He could face life in prison if convicted. And chocolate lovers, listen up. Several popular products are said to contain high levels of heavy metals. That's according to new Consumer Reports data. The nonprofit says it tested 48 products and found concerning amounts of lead, cadmium, or both in a third of them. Some of those include Hershey's cocoa powder, Starbucks hot chocolate mixes, and Target semi-sweet chocolate chips. Long-term exposure to the metals can result in nervous or immune system problems and kidney damage. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's important to know that breast cancer can strike anyone, male or female. That's the message today from a man who wants to help save lives. Medical reporter Liz Bonis shares his story of survival.
Hey there, everybody. John Hall has had quite a journey to recovery, but he admits when he was first diagnosed, he didn't know the early warning signs or that men could even get breast cancer. His first symptom, he said, appeared to set in overnight.
I started noticing spots on my T-shirts in the mornings.
By the time he was referred to Ohio's Christ Hospital breast surgeon, Dr. Jennifer Manders,
She told me, and my wife was with me, she told me that I had breast cancer, and I immediately started crying. It still makes me cry today to think about it.
John and his now late wife, Sally, eventually made the decision to have Dr. Manders' team perform a nipple-sparing bilateral mastectomy on John.
So we can lift the nipple up off of the underlying breast tissue as long as the tumor cells aren't involving the nipple, and we can save the nipple.
Now, nearly a decade later, John is cancer-free. He showed me how he does self-breast exams. A reminder for all of us, he says.
Anyone can get breast cancer. It's not as common in men, but it does happen.
As this video provided by the Christ Hospital shows, well, most breast cancers are found in women.
About 1 in 1,000 men gets breast cancer, and if you look at the total amount of breast cancer, about 1% of all the breast cancer we see is affecting men.
Once a year, John gets checked for any breast cancer abnormalities.
I don't think men should be embarrassed because they have breast cancer. I'm here to tell you, you can survive.
He's also here to tell you what he recently carved on this sign for Dr. Manders. It says, "Not all angels have wings. Some have scrubs." John's advice now to other guys: go to your primary care doctor every year and ask them to check your chest. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonis. Back to you.
All right, Liz, thank you very much. Coming up, how advocates in Oklahoma are trying to help people who were recently behind bars. We have reporters all across the country in your very neighborhoods. We are taking the pulse of America.
For those leaving the criminal justice system, housing is a key component for long-term success.
So if somebody does not have access to stable housing when coming out of incarceration, it does increase the likelihood that the individual will commit another offense.
Experts say access to safe, stable housing can greatly reduce recidivism rates. Unfortunately, that access is limited. At a state and federal level, there are more than 1,300 legal barriers to housing that relate to a criminal record. There's also a major lack of affordable housing in Oklahoma. Based on their findings, advocates and legislators hope to present a piece of legislation this coming session to better address this issue moving forward.
It's the first snowfall in the passes of the season. WashDOT crews made quick work of the few inches that fell overnight. While travel was not treacherous, the arrival of snow is a good reminder to have your car ready for winter pass travel.
What do we do or what should we do?
Nothing at all, actually. I mean, stuff's not required yet, so taking out my rear-wheel drive car, just messing around over here in the snow.
Later in the year, when we know it's snowing, we put in a bunch of heavy jackets in our boots and gloves whenever we go over the pass.
Randy Dornbos has loved Halloween.
It's my favorite holiday.
And even now, he still thinks it's a treat. So much so that over the last 6 years, he's built multiple 1,400 square foot haunted houses right in his front yard.
It's the entire driveway and all of the garage.
Filling the space with animated characters, decorations, and even real people to scare those who dare to enter, Dornbos spares no scares when he's putting the house together. And the frights change every year.
A hotel resort 23 years in the making on the Las Vegas Strip. It's inching closer to its big debut. It's now in the final stages of construction. You're looking at Fontainebleau Vegas, the first hotel on the Strip in 2 years, a 67-story, $3.7 billion resort, and now the tallest occupiable building in Nevada. Quite opulent, quite beautiful. All debuts on December 13th. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.